Welcome back to another Explainer. I am honestly so thrilled you're here with us today because, well, we're diving into something literally every single one of us deals with. Every single day. We're going to unpack the hidden psychological triggers behind our spending habits. We're talking about those invisible forces pulling the strings on pretty much every purchase you make. And trust me, by the time we wrap this up, you are never going to look at a shopping cart or, your bank account the exact same way again. So let's kick things off with a scenario I guarantee we've all lived through. You walk into a store, right? You just need one thing, maybe a tube of toothpaste or a carton of milk. Next thing you know, you're walking out with a cart overflowing with stuff. 5 things, 15 things. How does that happen? Why do we spend money we literally don't have? Why do certain luxury brands just feel so much more valuable? And why does the simple act of buying something give us this massive but super quick burst of happiness? Well, the answers aren't just about lacking self-control. Actually, they're deeply hardwired right into our human psychology. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the science behind spending, the biology of buying. We all really love to think of ourselves as these highly rational creatures, entirely driven by logic. We think, okay, I'm analyzing the price, I'm checking my budget, I'm making a sound, calculated decision. But the reality? Emotions are actually the ones grabbing the steering wheel. This is the ultimate conflict in our brains. Despite our absolute best efforts to be perfectly logical, when we step up to that checkout counter, our emotions almost always knock out our logic. We buy based on how a product makes us feel, and then, here's the funny part, we use logic afterward just to justify the whole thing to ourselves.
And there is an exact biological culprit for this: dopamine. It's that infamous chemical in your brain's reward system that creates feelings of pleasure and pure excitement. But here's the real kicker. Dopamine isn't just released when you actually buy the item. No, it's actually triggered the hardest by the anticipation of the reward. Just browsing online, tossing an item into your digital cart, or strolling through those beautifully lit store aisles, that floods your brain's reward system with dopamine. Your brain is literally drugging you into feeling hyped about a new purchase. It's like a giant biological trap. That's why buying something new feels so incredible in the moment, but it's also exactly why that thrill vanishes almost the second you walk through your front door. The chase is over, so the dopamine flatlines.
Moving right along to Section 2, emotions and your wallet. Emotional spending. So our feelings can completely and utterly hijack our bank accounts. Let's say you had a totally brutal day at work. Enter stress shopping. Or maybe you finally got that big promotion. Well, obviously that calls for celebration spending. Feeling a bit isolated on a Friday night? Loneliness will drive us straight to browsing online stores just to feel a spark of connection with, well, anything. And definitely do not underestimate boredom or fear, especially the fear of missing out. What ends up happening is that shopping quickly morphs into this form of temporary emotional therapy. We're literally swiping our debit cards to regulate our moods. And hey, it's highly effective for about 5 minutes. But man, it is an incredibly expensive form of therapy in the long run. Which brings us to Section 3, the marketer's secret playbook, marketing psychology. And this brilliantly illustrates how clever companies are basically weaponizing our own biology against us. Take a look at this. When you see a limited time offer or a flash sale, marketers are manufacturing artificial scarcity and urgency. Your brain literally panics, thinking, oh my gosh, I have to act right now or I'm going to miss out. Then you've got store layouts and colors. Ever notice how supermarkets put the milk all the way at the very back? Yeah, that's so you have to walk past thousands of other tempting goodies. They are actively using layout to disorient you and colors to manipulate your mood, like red for urgency or blue to build trust. And luxury branding, it artificially elevates the perceived value. A plain white t-shirt with a fancy designer logo on it completely bypasses your logic, simply because the brand makes you feel elevated. But wait, this manipulation goes even deeper into our subconscious senses than you might think. Did you know the background music in a grocery store is intentionally slow? Like, it's specifically engineered to sit right around 60 beats per minute. Why? To encourage you to subconsciously walk slower and buy more stuff. On the flip side, fast music in a crowded retail store creates this rushing sense of urgency. And packaging? Oh wow, the packaging. The heavy, smooth, tactile feel of a luxury smartphone box, that is carefully engineered in a laboratory to make the gadget inside feel infinitely more valuable. It successfully overrides your self-control before you've even turned the device on. Crazy, right? Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, social pressure and FOMO. Social influence. So here we have a classic battle, actual needs versus lifestyle inflation. As humans, our actual baseline needs for a comfortable life are pretty stable. We need shelter, food, some basic clothing, and a way to get around. But then, lifestyle inflation creeps in. As we make a little more money, or honestly just as we watch the people around us, our definition of a basic need starts to expand. Suddenly, we don't just want a car, we want a car with heated leather seats just to keep up with our friends. We start accumulating all these status symbols, desperately trying to project this image of success to the world, and in the process, we totally confuse our wants with our actual needs.
The absolutely crucial point to take away here is this: comparison often leads to unnecessary spending, and social media has essentially put this human tendency on steroids. We are constantly 24/7 exposed to these carefully curated, idealized versions of other people's lives. You've got influencers showing off insane luxury vacations, friends posting about their massive brand new kitchens, you name it. This constant exposure creates an incredibly expensive, endless cycle fueled by FOMO, the fear of missing out. So what do? We spend money we don't even have to buy things we definitely don't need, just to impress people we might not even really like.
Bringing it all down to earth in Section 5, Everyday Spending Traps, Modern Financial Drains.
Now, on their own, none of these traps seem like a really big deal, do they? A $5 coffee here, a $10 streaming subscription there, maybe ordering dinner on a delivery app just because you're feeling a bit tired. But here is the massive psychological trap: friction, or rather, the lack of it. Tech companies have systematically removed the pain of paying. Think about it. When you hand over physical cash, your brain registers a tangible loss. It actually hurts a little bit. But when you just swipe a piece of plastic, or your phone auto-renews a subscription, or you click Buy Now, Pay Later, boom. That friction is entirely gone. You feel zero pain. And so, these seemingly harmless, friction-free micro-purchases, they quietly compound, month after month, until they snowball into a pretty major financial disaster.
Which brings us to a really critical realization, right? How do the wealthy actually think differently about money? I mean, if our brains are literally wired for immediate dopamine hits and these billion-dollar companies are perfectly designed to exploit those exact emotional triggers, how does anyone actually build wealth? Well, they do it by actively rewiring their habits. In our next explainer, we are going to dive into the exact psychological tricks you can use to stop overspending. We're going to reveal the fascinating habits of disciplined savers and show you exactly how to train your brain to stop consuming and start building true wealth. It's going to be a total game changer. Until then, the very next time you add something to your cart, I want you to ask yourself, is this logic or is this just dope?
Welcome to This Explainer. Look, have you ever wondered why it feels literally impossible to save your hard-earned cash, even when you logically know you really should? Well, it turns out it's not about your math skills at all. It's actually all in your head. Today, we're diving straight into the psychology of wealth, unpacking the invisible forces that guide our wallets, and figuring out exactly how to rewrite that internal programming so we can finally build some long-term wealth. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The psychology of spending, 2. How millionaires think, 3. Tricks to spend less, 4. Building better money habits, and 5. Mastering your money mindset. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The psychology of spending.
So we really have to confront this exact question first. Why is investing just so incredibly difficult? It all comes down to the magnetic pull of instant gratification. Our brains are basically hardwired for survival in the present moment. You know the feeling, right? You see a pair of shoes or that shiny new gadget, and boom, your brain releases dopamine. It is literally craving that immediate hit of pleasure. Investing, on the flip side, asks your brain to delay that joy for a future benefit that you can't even touch or feel right now. It's this massive fundamental clash between getting what you want today versus waiting for tomorrow.
Because of that clash, we end up with this highly skewed perception of risk. When most people think of the stock market, they feel this visceral, gut-level fear of losing their money. But think about the stark reality of not investing. If you just stash your money under a mattress or in a low-yield savings account, inflation absolutely guarantees that you're losing future wealth. So ironically, because a temporary market dip feels like an immediate threat, we avoid it, and we end up actively choosing a guaranteed loss of purchasing power over time. Crazy, right?
Moving on to Section 2. How millionaires think.
The foundational secret of the wealthy really isn't some super complex trading algorithm. It's actually just a relentless focus on assets over liabilities. So instead of sinking capital into a luxury car that immediately depreciates the second you drive it off the lot, or racking up high-interest debt for designer clothes, they funnel their cash into real estate, investments, or businesses. It's an absolute unwavering discipline of acquiring things that actively put money back into their pockets long before they even consider buying things that just drain it.
Wealthy individuals conquer that financial fear we just talked about by anchoring themselves to some core habits. They absolutely master delayed gratification, ruthlessly distinguishing true needs from passing wants. By zooming out and looking at, say, a 10-year horizon, they ensure they invest before they spend. They lock in their future before dealing with today's desires. They aren't just sitting around waiting to see what's left over at the end of the month. They secure their foundation first through incredibly strict discipline.
All right, Section 3. Tricks to spend less.
I absolutely love this tactic. The 24-hour rule is a highly effective circuit breaker that forces you to wait before making a large purchase, and it completely neutralizes emotional shopping. So next time you're browsing online and find something you desperately want, just stop at step 1. Then immediately go to step 2. Close the tab and force yourself to wait a full 24 hours. That dopamine spike we talked about, it's going to drop. By the time you get to step 3 the next day, you'll often find that the intense desire has just completely vanished, and you can finally make a calm, purely logical decision.
You can also build a defense by adding friction through rapid-fire digital hygiene strategies. This psychologically blocks those billion-dollar marketing triggers designed to just separate you from your cash. Think about it. One-click checkout is literally designed to bypass your logical brain. So, delete your saved credit card information. Forcing yourself to get up, find your wallet, and type out those 16 digits gives your brain the time it needs to stop and say, wait, do I actually need this? Unsubscribe from daily flash sale emails that manufacture false urgency. And hey, try using physical cash for your daily expenses. Handing over actual physical bills triggers a psychological pain of paying that swiping a piece of plastic completely hides.
Section 4. Building better money habits. Setting clear financial goals and automating your savings is essentially paying your future self first. It completely removes the daily willpower required to manually budget and track your expenses. Let's be real, if you have to consciously decide to transfer money into savings every single month, eventually you're going to slip up. But if you set your account so that a chunk of your paycheck automatically routes to an investment account the very second you get paid, the decision is already made for you. Track those expenses so you know exactly where your money's going, set your goals, and definitely don't forget to reward your progress to keep that habit loop super positive and motivating. Because the core tenet of building better money habits is remarkably simple. And honestly, it's arguably the most important rule in all of personal finance. Do not save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving. Literally, save first. If you don't prioritize saving right off the bat, you are inevitably going to spend whatever remains. Section 5. Mastering your money mindset.
Look at the stark contrast between the consumer mindset, which is totally trapped in scarcity and immediate consumption, and the investor mindset, which operates from a place of abundance and future growth. A consumer believes that money's sole purpose is to be spent right now. They look at $1,000 and just see a brand new TV. An investor, though, they believe money is a tool for building freedom. They look at that exact same $1,000 and see seeds that can be planted right now to grow into a small fortune over the next few decades.
You also have to be aware of the insidious trap of lifestyle inflation. Successfully avoiding this is truly the only way your hard work actually translates into measurable wealth. Think back to when you got your very first job. You survived on that salary, right? But as you get promotions and raises, suddenly you feel like you need a nicer apartment, premium cable, and way more expensive dinners. Before you know it, you're making twice as much money, but you're saving absolutely none of it. Recognizing and aggressively resisting lifestyle inflation allows you to actually widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend. So, remember this. Every single dollar spent impulsively today represents an opportunity cost. It is literally a small piece of your future financial freedom that you're just giving away. If you buy a $200 jacket you don't actually need, the true cost isn't just $200. The true cost is the thousands of dollars that $200 could have become if you'd invested it over 30 years at an 8% return. Once you start thinking purely in terms of opportunity cost, every single purchase gets weighed heavily against your future freedom.
And to sustain that investor mindset, you've got to turn theory into a daily practice. Start viewing literally every single purchase through that lens of opportunity cost. Grab a finance book, or maybe listen to educational content during your commute. By consistently immersing yourself in the language of money, these wealth-building behaviors actually stop feeling like a chore. They become second nature, actively rewriting your psychological defaults over time.
Before we wrap up this explainer, I want you to remember this highly empowering truth. While corporations spend billions of dollars to exploit human behavior, understanding how your own mind works allows you to rebel. It allows you to make way smarter decisions and build real, lasting wealth. They absolutely want you to be an impulsive consumer. But by seeing the strings attached, you can cut them. You can actively choose to be an investor instead.
So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative final question to really reflect on, because mastering your financial destiny is entirely in your own hands. Will you control your money,
or will you let your emotions control your spending? Are you going to take the reins, or will you let this psychological marketing machine steer your life? The tools are right in front of you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and here is to building your abundant future.